Where do you draw the line? How much BM is too much BM? For all of you who have been following along in my series of stories episodes, you know that I am always up for a good rivalry. While solo ulting support players as a DPS is very much par for the course, trying to spawn camp a McCree as Reinhardt, even if willfully unsuccessful, is the kind of BM I can definitely get behind. Because you see, unlike the Overwatch forums, I firmly believe that BM has its place in our game. Not only does it make the games more exciting, but it also adds color to an otherwise very bland gameplay experience. Social interaction is very much the spice that makes PvP games so tasty. And while you may frown upon me and my two friends for teaming up against a lonely McCree player in an FFA lobby, ultimately, this is where many tales find their origin. But as one of my favorite YouTube storytellers, Barney64, once said, cosmic punishment is inescapable. The only thing that can delay it is luck. Pure, unfiltered luck. And some would say that teaming up against solo players in an FFA lobby would bring about the bad karma that many people insist I deserve. If you are one of those people, then you will be happy to hear that judgment has finally caught up to my mischief. But before we get into that story, let me show you said cosmic punishment at work. In this FFA lobby, I am one such player that has to deal with an Ana-Genji duo who decided to team up. Now, of course, I could always just leave the lobby, but you know that this wouldn't be like me. If there is a rivalry to be had, then I will swoop down and try to reap the flesh of its carcass for content, like a vulture. While the Genji makes a valiant effort to try and protect their Ana, the sniping lady herself missed the sleep dart and instead of hitting me, ended up sleeping her knight in cybernetic armor. It was in this moment that FaZe knew this is gonna end up in a YouTube video. I slayed the witch and turned to the Genji for the most satisfying teabag in Overwatch history, before eventually executing him like the pathetic loser that he is. Of course, I won't lie if I said that us teaming up against others in FFA has never backfired. Like trying to hunt down a Symmetra just to accidentally punch Birdie into a wall out of recall. But with the sheer amount of BM I've distributed, you know that Jeff is out to get me and he will make sure that the scales of judgment are in balance. And that's where our most recent tale comes into play. Yes, my friends, our story today takes place on Busan. While you might be used to seeing me play solo in the past couple episodes, this time I'm accompanied by Nado and Birdie, meaning that the Insomnia squad is finally back together to play some Overwatch. And Warzone. To make things more interesting, we played this dumb little RNG game in which we queued for all three roles and let the matchmaker decide what we should be playing. To this day, Birdie and I are still convinced that Nate somehow cheats the system because I swear to Jeff he always gets to play DPS. Now let me just preface this game with the following. This match of Overwatch is the match of rivalries. By the end of today, almost every single player on my team will have a nemesis on the enemy team. We decide to kick things off with a good old-fashioned dive comp while Nate chose to throw on one of the worst DPS picks currently available in the game. But not to be discouraged, I began my main tank brawl with the opposing Reinhardt before their Winston decided to join the party. At this point, their Widowmaker had already managed to find an opening pick on our Hanzo, giving them the upper hand. While brawling it out with a bunch of burly tanks is definitely fun, eventually I figured that disrupting the enemy Widowmaker might be a good idea when playing Winston. And as much as that sounds like, well, a sound plan, unfortunately their Doomfist disagreed. I sacrificed my life in the noble pursuit of creating space, and our ex-Hanzo, now Widowmaker player appreciated that very much, winning back their honor and also managing to deny the resurrection. With our Widowmaker covering the floor in bodies, it was all but simple cleanup for our team from here on out, so even a mini diva would be able to get the job done. But then a rather odd callout occurred on Discord.
Dude, Mercy's on point!
Wait, what?
Yes! I'm just a baby diva, I can't get her.
While I was busy wasting my jump pack cooldown on having a staring contest with the enemy Doomfist, Birdie was not happy about my lack of participation when it comes to hunting down the enemy Mercy. You see, Birdie really, and I mean really hates playing against Mercy, and as much as I would love to allow you to listen in on some uncharitable thoughts that he has about the character, I'm trying to stay monetized here, so that Discord chat is not making it into the video anytime soon.
We let this Mercy get away!
Eventually, the enemy Winston decided to push me off the high ground, but naturally, I wouldn't simply let that stand. This was my high ground, dang it, and I would defend it even if it cost my life. A cheeky headshot sights of our Widowmaker made sure that I could plant my flag on this building and followed up by unapologetically solo ulting the opposing Mercy. You can tell I don't play Winston very often because my primal rage control is practically non-existent, but it was good enough to hunt the Mercy back into their spawn. A massive win in my book considering it would help Birdie's morale to stay intact. Back on the point, the only remaining player we had to hunt down was their Doomfist because just a moment earlier, their Reinhardt had already gone and thrown himself off the map by accident. The only thing left to do was put Mercy back on her place again to make Birdie forget that we let her slip away earlier, and to our surprise, almost the entire enemy team got replaced by new players. The keen-eyed among you may have noticed that 2 players already left in the previous clip, but now the Weep squad was gone as well, prompting Jeff to send a new set of challengers. The round ended with very little resistance sides of the opposition, considering our massive lead in capture percentage as well as ultimate charge, and at the end, even more players would be replaced. As it stands, the first rivalry had already found its victor, with our resident sniper main beating their nemesis into quitting the match. While Birdie was fighting some imaginary battle in his head against a hero that quite literally makes no effort to fight back, my personal arch-enemy had just joined the lobby at the very end. Would this new set of players stand a chance against our combined forces, or would they go the way of the Weep squad? Find out how the story continues after a short message from our sponsor.
Subscribe to my goddamn channel!
Back to you, Cliff. Thanks, Cliff. Now, the second round would go nothing like the first one. Considering we were facing off against a new set of players, we decided to give the hard dive another shot, but between the double hit scan setup getting constantly jerked off by pocket healers and Roadhog doing a lot of damage to discorded targets, we got beaten into a pulp. And considering that our dive was about as cohesive as diarrhea, I made the executive decision to meet the enemy Roadhog on their own turf by mirroring the pick. While getting headshot out of spawn is not exactly how I managed this swap to go, this was nothing to worry about. I was dishing out damage aplenty and even managed to demech their diva, forcing her to use her ultimate to get a replacement. What was meant to be an emergency play somehow ended up blowing up both of our supports, and we swiftly realized that, unlike last round, we actually had to put in the effort if we wanted to win this game. Birdie barely managed to retreat back to spawn, narrowly dodging a helix rocket that would have otherwise cost him his mech, and I was about to meet my nemesis. As we regrouped and walked out of spawn, I threw my hook out on the overextending Roadhog just to have the dang thing phase through him like he was Danny Phantom. While I loudly exclaimed that this was nonsense, I did go back into the replay just to verify that casual 130 MS did indeed make contact not only with the hitbox of my hook, but with the physical hook itself. However, Jeff decided I shan't be granted the pleasure of reeling in my prey. Turns out favor the shooter only benefits the enemy team. Birdie bought us some real estate with a diva bomb that not only allowed us to push in, but also caught the enemy Zenyatta by surprise. The fight would finally be taken to the point where I was the only one making an effort to actually cap the objective in this objective-based video game. Regardless of that, the cap was ours for the time being, and our lagging friend over here dodged another one of my hooks. But this wouldn't be a rivalry if I wasn't determined to put the man in his place. While I was second-guessing my decision of following him back into his spawn, somehow he had access to the Season 1 space-time hook that literally ripped me through a wall, but thankfully not off the map. Never mind, this clown is actually solo-ulting me. While all of this was going down, Nate was having a hard time diving the soldier, allowing them to spend the entire round jerking off on high ground and dishing out damage for free. With the only objective-focused player, me, of our team taken out, of course we lost the point and had to fight over it once again. It would take a decent amount of effort and an accidental yet very satisfying hook on the enemy Mercy to regain control. I disposed of casual 130 MS at the end, but wasn't satisfied considering I merely finished off a low HP target. This very clearly would not warrant any BM. At this point we had been reinvigorated and decided to push into their spawn to show our dominance. After all, 50% of an Overwatch match is a mix of mechanical skill and game sense, and the other 50% consists of getting into your enemy's head. And right here, the enemy team made a fatal mistake. They thought they get to leave the spawn room, but boy were they wrong. Just kidding, they all pressed Q and took back the objective. There was definitely a valiant effort to be made this round, but with their soldier getting to stay on high ground for free, nobody doing as much as looking at the enemy Mercy, and both of their tanks decimating the only player interested in playing the objective, the victory was theirs. With the score being tied up, drastic measures had to be taken to ensure success on this last point. We decided to go for the old Reinhardt Zarya comp, and this time, our gameplay will be fueled by the wrath of Odin himself. With our golden weapons in hand and our egos bursting to the brim with confidence, we marched onto the objective to end this rivalry once and for all. Their weird, scrappy playstyle, much like in the previous round, did not allow for their DPS to touch the objective, and once their tank line had been taken care of, capping the point was very easy. Their hitscan players were tearing through our HP, but even still, if nobody touches the objective, there was nothing to worry about. Mercy brought me back, and together we would dance around the pillars while we were awaiting our team's return. We managed to secure 42% capture progression before eventually being overwhelmed by all the incoming damage, but there was one thing they couldn't take away from us: our burning hatred. The enemy soldier went for a bold play of trying to solo ult our Pharah, but he wasn't prepared for what must have felt like the wrath of a Norse god coming down upon him as we tore him to pieces and started to chase down his fat bodyguard. It took some amount of effort to bring his massive health pool down, but with their front line in shambles, we knew that taking this objective would be a piece of cake. We easily bodied them off the point, and witnessing the Roadhog get revived only meant that I would be given the satisfaction of seeing him eliminated once again. Our blood was boiling as Birdie wasn't only cucked out of charging their D.Va when he clearly should have been granted that connection, but again when a point-blank shadow did not end up affecting D.Va in the slightest. It was time for me to raise our team's spirits, so I expertly solo ulted and teabagged the enemy soldier as a display of confidence, dominance, and sheer power. You might not believe me, but this play actually did wonders in rallying Birdie and NATO, though I cannot let you listen in on that conversation because there was a lot of profanity involved. What followed was a soul-crushing obliteration of the enemy team, accompanied by a lot of angry yelling, and just like on our last episode, the final nail in the coffin was a massive barrage to seal the deal. What started as a casual fun time that made our enemies rage quit turned into a massive battle royale of individual rivalries that, at the end of the day, we came out ahead on. Sure, the enemies may not have been aware of any of that, but that didn't matter to us. This imaginary battle was won and we would alt F4 the game knowing we had bested our nemesis. The end. Well, that was a story and a half, and because I know that somebody's gonna mention it in the comments, overthinking and making up stories of otherwise mundane rounds of Overwatch is kind of the point of the series. I know that nobody's taking these matches very seriously. These videos are just supposed to entertain. And if you felt sufficiently entertained, feel free to let me know by dropping me a like on your way out, hit that bell icon to not miss out on my next upload, and until next time, peace.